I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and me and D.L. Hughley talked about this in our interview, was that the thing about these monuments that I never realized, I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day. She was telling me how a lot of those monuments didn't go up during the Civil War. They came
none
out
of them
afterwards during the Jim Crow times to kind of scare black people.
Jim Crow and civil rights. Listen, you building a monument to motherfuckers that lost. You getting every time you see one of them is a motherfucker whose way of life, whose ideas, whose school of thought was defeated.
I saw that before this interview. Yeah. Yes, they weren't built during that time. They were built during Jim Crow.
Right.
And shitload were built during the civil rights era.
Right.
To fuck psychologically with black people. That was some mind fuck shit. You had one or two, because I saw actually a graph on this. I saw the graph where you see specklings during the Civil War of little monuments. Then once Jim Crow came, the shit spiked, then it went down again. And then when the Civil War shit came, bang, it went up again. I mean, not Civil War, Civil Rights era. When the Civil Rights era came, and this is all psychological intimidation of black people.
Right. I mean, you don't see any statues for like Lee Harvey Oswald. Imagine that. Imagine a Lee Harvey Oswald statue in Washington, D.C. You know what I'm saying? Just imagine that.
Or Timothy McVeigh.
Or Timothy McVeigh.
Statue.
In Oklahoma.
Yeah. With a blown out building, and he's just standing there looking at it. Yeah. Good fucking job I did.
Right.
Like,
I mean, who gives statues to losers? Which is essentially who the Confederates are. They're rebels.
Yeah.
They're essentially traitors.
Yeah. They're terrorists.
They're terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
Bin Laden don't have no statues. Not in America. I don't know if maybe somewhere, really anywhere, but I'm sure maybe, certain people still look up to him and so forth. But like, yeah, you'll never see that. It's a strange phenomenon.
Listen, and it's, it's certain indignities that you would ask of no other people. No other people except your ex-slaves. Like, you act like, oh, exactly, forget about it, slavery's over, but yet y'all want to hang on to shit like this because it's deeper than that. You've hung on to more than just statues. Is what we have to understand. Well, they've been hanging on to concepts.
Yeah.
And mind frames. And listen, a lot of this shit is in people's DNA. It's in your fucking DNA.
Well, someone made a point, which I thought was an interesting point, was that these statues...
Oh, and they're cheap as shit, too.
Well, are they?
Oh, that's another thing about them.
I didn't know that.
Oh, check this out. The statues, because remember when the lady pulled the statue down?
Yeah.
You remember how easy it fell and the legs twisted up and all of that? Did you ever see a statue that's fucking so pliable like that? You know why? Because they were mass produced at a certain time. And they were mass produced cheaply. So if you wanted a Civil War monument in your fucking town, you can get one for very cheap.
On the low.
On the low.
Okay.
So, yeah, look into this shit. Like, seriously, the shits are made like fucking tin, not like a statue that you would think. But a lot of times they're up there, and if you knock on it, it might sound like it is made of metal, but it's not strong.
It's not solid. It's not
solid
at all. Right, because one of the points that Trump made was that you're trying to change history and so forth.
Right, no, this is not history.
Right, well, and then someone made an interesting point, which I agree with, is that these statues shouldn't necessarily be destroyed. They should be in museums. They shouldn't be on public display.
Right.
Now, in a museum is a rightful place, and you could explain the meaning behind it.
Because we do run a slippery slope, too, when we try to erase the things we don't like in history.
Because no one's trying to erase Hitler. No one's trying to erase, like the man himself. Like, in fact, people should be reminded of
Right.
that.
Well,
that
this
type
is
of
what I'm
thing.
saying, so that it won't happen.
Yeah, no one's
But-
trying to erase Timothy McVeigh or Charles Manson or any of these people. But you don't put them up on public display as tokens of admiration.
Right. Exactly.
They should be in museums with explanations behind who they
Explanations.
are and the effect they had on human history.
Now, it's funny, though, the only people that they did try to erase signs of is black people, the original man. This is why you notice so many statues and shit got the nose and shit cut off, and the Sphinx, the nose is gone. And why is that? Who did that? What were they trying to do there? They're trying to take away so you don't see what the features of these people really are. That's what that was done for, Vlad. You never thought about it.
I never thought about it.
Yeah.
I just assumed that part maybe wasn't part of the original mold. It was like an addition to the mold.
Your boy was shooting cannons at it. Your boy Napoleon.
Oh, really?
And his people was taking target practice shooting at the fucking Sphinx and all this type of shit. But they traditionally chop off the noses of statues of original people, especially when these original people do like, you know, technological shit that they feel like we weren't supposed to be able to do. Like, oh, black people couldn't have possibly did that. But we did. And so let's erase the record of it because we want you to feel like we was the first ones to do this. So let me chop off the nose so it's kind of obscure.
The best example of this is Jesus Christ, where they completely, the popular image of him
is that he's a white man.
is that he's a white guy.
Yeah.
You know, to the point of when you go into, you know, the houses of grandparents and stuff like that, they will have the white Jesus hanging up in their house. I've seen it time and time again. Have you seen it?
Which is sick. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's been radical times where I'll see a black Jesus in a Christian's home, but that's rare, you know. A lot of times, especially, you know, coming up in the time I came up in, you definitely would see a white Jesus on the, and it just, even when I was young and nobody even told me about this, no one broke the science down, that just looked wrong.
Right.
That just looked wrong to me.
Notice how we don't have well, I guess you're not supposed to depict images of Muhammad, right? The Prophet Muhammad?
Nah.
Okay. Right. And then when you do, it causes problems.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess having a white Muhammad is not really an issue because no one does it at all.
Right, yeah. You're not supposed to make depictions.
But for example, you don't see a white Buddha.
No.
Think about that. Have you ever seen a white Buddha? I have not. There's no photographs
African
of them.
Buddhas, there's Asian Buddhas, there are no white Buddhas. Well, that's because there's no white Buddhas. And Buddha is just not one person. You see what I'm saying? Actually, if you really want to get deep, there's no white prophets in any religion. All wise men, all holy men,
What about the
original people.
What about the Christian saints? The Catholic saints?
Those are people they made up. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, but it's all kind of made up.
No. What you got to understand is the Bible already existed at that time.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So if you go into the so-called holy books, there were no holy white people. These are white people now after the fact trying to make people holy.
Right.
By deeming them saints. How the fuck you gonna do that?
Right. I mean, like
you're just a fucking man. How you gonna determine who the fuck?
You know, like, I mean, the Mormons have their own white saints and so forth. So, but you know, depending on how you look at it, you're right. In the old books,
there is no.
None, because there are no white people that are around during the creation of these books.
Well, at some point there were.
Later on.
Yeah, there was.
Not in the Old Testament. Not even really in the New Testament.
They was around.
They was around?
Yeah, they was around. They were named. They had different names and different tribal names and all that. But you know, at one point they wasn't around, and then they was around.
Then they were
Put it
around.
down.
That's how we're gonna end it. Lord Jamar, man. Until next time.
Peace.
Peace.